Welcome to memoQ Talks, where we talk to industry leaders about their experiences, lessons learned, and what works best across all areas of localization. Now here's your host.
Hey, André, how are you?
Hey, Mark. Really great to you.
Likewise.
Thanks you for the invite.
Hey, my pleasure. It's been a while. I think the last time I saw you was at World in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that was the first time in World. It was really cool to meet everyone from the industry.
And you know, it's nice to meet people, but at the end of the day, we have to kind of judge it through the lens of, was this effective for me? And you know, what are your thoughts in terms of the show participation? Does it?
So that's interesting. So like for the little story, we planned to go to World 5 days before World. So that was like completely rushed decision. I was at SlaterCon 5 days before, and it was really great in terms of business. I met quite a few people, and everyone was telling me like, you should come to World. If Slater is interesting, you'll meet great people. In terms of return on investment, I think like event marketing in general is kind of hard to get a very hard number on the return on investment. I think there is like, you were on the two sides of like building a brand awareness and at the same time, building kind of much longer term relationships, with some companies or people in the industry. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, that's successful. In terms of like deal signed, like 3-4 months after the event, not that much.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you get that exposure to, and sometimes that exposure, because if they hear about you online or they see something someplace, but if they've met you in person, sometimes that can be a lot more powerful. And sometimes those relationships can make introductions as well. So, hey, so now you're back in Spain?
Exactly, in Barcelona.
Awesome.
Sunny-ish Barcelona today.
Sunny-ish. Well, I'm showing off because I'm in an Airbnb, hence my fancy studio behind me here, in Montenegro. And I love it, man. I mean, it's mid-February. The sun's out. I was at the beach. People were in swimsuits today.
Yeah,
keep in mind, I'm from Seattle, so that never happens there. So I'm loving it. Hey, I got to ask you, so can you tell me a little bit about the origin story of Happy Scribe? I mean, whose brainchild was this? How did this come about?
Well, it's going back 7 years ago. So like,
well, when you're my age, 7 years doesn't sound like a long time. So
in my age, like it's, I was 23 years old. Wow. When everything started. So like, at that time, I was doing my master in Dublin City University in Ireland. Mm-hmm. Long story short, I was doing like computer science mixed with business, and as part of my master degree, I had to conduct qualitative research, mm-hmm. Looking at social entrepreneurs in Ireland, their motivation and aspiration. So I was tasked to go and interview 12 to 15 social entrepreneurs, trying to understand what was it all about. And in the process of qualitative research, when you do all the interviews, which is the fun part, then you need to come back to the university and start transcribing every single of these interviews. And so I did transcribe.
You're like, yeah, dude, I mean, you just stumbled into this like, God, this is a pain in the ass.
Exactly. So like I get back to university, I transcribe manually the first interview. It takes me like 6 hours straight. And I'm like, there is absolutely zero chances that I'm spending like 40 hours on a project that I'm being like a volunteer for just to transcribe interviews. So like, with this in mind, I was chatting with my flatmate at the time, Mark, who is now the CTO of Happy Scribe, about how we could improve the process and how we could like find solutions. And that's when we started trying to play with like speech to text technologies to see how it could help me in that process.
Let me stop you there for a second, because I mean, transcription and speech to text transcription, I think has been around in one format or another for a long time in terms of like, I know there are medical transcription companies. Were they not using technology, or was that all manual human transcribers?
So back in 2017, you had kind of the legacy players with, and the one you may know, which is Dragon. I think this is the one you're referring to. but there was absolutely there was no cloud-based solution at the time.
All right.
So the options that you had online were mostly digital agencies or freelance marketplace to get someone to proofread it for you. But there was not really any tech tools to help you do the transcription, which has completely changed when you look at the landscape today.
Totally. Yeah. So, okay, continue on. You guys say, hey, there's an opportunity.
Yeah. So there was an opportunity. And so we basically start playing with the APIs and the speech to text technology that was there at the time. And we do kind of a rough MVP small tech product for me to be able to solve that use case, which ended up working pretty well. And after 2 days, we started receiving a lot of traction in the university of researchers, PhD students that wanted to use it. And we decided to just lock ourselves for 48 hours and start building the first version of the product.
Yeah.
And once that's ready, so we have our friends using it. It's kind of cool. It's this student project, but at the same time, we go on forums and we kind of say hey, we're two students, college student. This is what we've built. You should try it. It's pretty cool. And some journalists in the US are picking up the story, and the article goes completely viral. The articles that goes out go completely viral. And we start being flooded by requests from journalists in the US that are starting to use the service to speed up their internal process, basically.
That is awesome, man. It's you just, I mean, you came across the idea because it was a trouble, a challenge that you were facing. And then you had this kind of built-in community where you could say, hey, you guys, here's this kind of MVP that we've created. Try it and get feedback. And then how did the journalists in the US, how did they come across this?
So through this article, basically, there was this press article that went live, and most journalists were just it's a very networked industry. So they were sharing between themselves. And that's really was the first spurt of growth of the company.
I think maybe that's a hack right there for people who are trying to get funding and want to get free publicity. Create something that journalists can use, and they'll write about it. So no, that's
true.
Good.
That's true.
So I don't want to spend too much time on the origin story, but I would like to get into the how did you get your first funding and where you're at kind of right now, and yeah.
So we've never received any funding. So Happy Scribe is still completely bootstrapped. So we've been growing organically since day one. And so far, I mean, we're not dogmatic on if we want to receive funding or not, but this is not something that is on our plans right now.
Okay, but a lot of startups, even if they're bootstrapped and self-funded, one of the reasons they look for funding is to accelerate growth, right? Because you either through the R&D and development or through the sales and marketing. It sounds like you've made a strategic business decision, which oftentimes are influenced by the business, but also by an underlying philosophy. So, for example, Craigslist, they could have gone IPO for billions and billions of dollars, and the guy said, no, we're happy with where we're at. We have 50 people. They have good jobs. And if we go IPO, there's going to be all this unnecessary pressure to, generate new revenue streams. And we don't want to do that. We're happy with where we're at. What's your underlying philosophy for not accelerating growth and development?
So I'd say our view on the problem is a bit different. We're still very, very ambitious on where we want to be, where we want to go. And maybe we can talk a bit more in depth about,
Please.
We've talked about what was Happy Scribe before, but we've now evolved into something that is much more mature and with a pretty strong long-term strategy. We want to use our organic growth as a way to position ourselves on the market as already kind of one of the key leader. Then the way we want to see funding and raising funds in the future, that, as I was saying, I'm not dogmatic about it, would be to accelerate our growth. So how can we once we've cracked our kind of more like growth model on the more B2B sales or like different sort of acquisition channels, etc., or can we accelerate this by taking external funding? What we don't really want to play with is getting funding to build that initial growth model.
Got you. Okay. And that's interesting. And, you know, I'm running a startup as well. And I love to talk to other CEOs and founders because there's a lot of commonality in terms of the challenges we face. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later on. But why don't you, maybe we can jump into like right now, where you're at in terms of, I know you offer transcription services and subtitling services. You know, for people on the outside, can you just kind of give a quick description of each, and then talk a little about who the buyers are and what the trends are in each one of those areas? Yeah. By the way, I'm going to get rid of my microphone because I just realized it's not plugged in. It's just here for show.
I know.
So, that's going down. I just looked at the settings and it's like MacBook Pro microphone. And I'm like, well, that's not my really fancy. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, the quality is still very good.
Okay. That's good.
No, yeah. So like, maybe I'll go back to like what Happy Scribe is and what we're aiming to do. I think like, you know, we started as like this AI transcription tool.
Yep.
And we've added kind of a couple of services along the year, subtitle, human services, etc., etc. If you look at Happy Scribe today and what we're planning to build and what we're building is trying to become this kind of next generation audiovisual localization platform. So we see like a big gap in the market on how do you provide super high quality audiovisual language or localization services. Today we focus on two of these services, so like subtitles and transcription. And these two services, we provide them in two different ways. The first one is full AI. So when we say full AI, we've developed in-house different AI models, one for the speech to text piece, some others for the diarization, some others for like the subtitling on itself. So like, how do you create subtitles that are like extremely readable on screen, that are of like the highest level of readability score without having to have the human too much on the loop. And then with this AI, we provide all the UX editing tool for you to like go through all these transcript subtitles and get them in whatever formats, collaborate with your colleagues and your different stakeholders in the project. The second piece is the human made. So like that's a service that we launched around 3 years ago, which is here to fix the gap between what the AI is capable of and what our customers actually need. We work with clients that range from, you know, like maybe journalists that just need a rough transcription and where AI works really well, to global production companies that need to provide subtitles for Amazon Prime or Netflix, and where the quality of the subtitle needs to be of a much higher quality, and where the human in the loop is not an, I mean,
it's not
has to be there. Basically, the AI is still very far away from solving the problem on that front. And so like, that's kind of like the core services that we have, but then all these services have like also their different level of granularity. So like you would go for subtitles to, or do you do normal subtitle to like, foreign subtitles, different languages, or like even going to like this, SDH, level type of subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing community. So you can make your content compliant with, FCC guidelines in the US, EU Accessibility Act in Europe, etc., etc. So that's a bit like what we have. And so like, that's the center of our product, the services. And around these services, we have what we call the platform and the product, where we not only try to make these services accessible, but as well understanding what is the steps for your customers, what are the steps before they request the services and the steps after, and being able to recreate the workflow that they have internally on the platform. What people are coming to review. Do they need to collaborate with a producer or like external linguist to review the project? Do they need to invite their legal team, etc.? And so we've built like this entire suite of like integration, project management, document organization, etc., to make sure that they can actually come on Happy Scribe and reproduce the workflow that they have around audiovisual language services directly on the platform.
That's interesting because I mean I've used Happy Scribe and I'm very happy with it in terms of the transcription. I record a lot of podcasts and I can take the podcast, put it into Happy Scribe, and I get just this beautiful transcript, and then I can use it. And it's funny because I've used several different tools. For example, Descript, they built in their transcription tool. Now Riverside, which we are recording on Riverside FM, they didn't have transcription before. Now they do. They offer editing. What I found is Riverside, and this is typical of a lot of platforms, they're really good at their initial kind of offering, and then they bolt on these extra services, and it doesn't work as well. For example, the transcription can't even compare it to, for example, Happy Scribe or maybe some of the other tools out there. So you're expanding your platform, and I understand the collaboration piece because that's kind of like when you get to the enterprise level, a no-brainer. You need to be able to loop other, reviewers in. You mentioned legal. But when you go beyond that, because I think before what you were saying is ideally or ultimately you want to build out this whole audiovisual localization platform. There are platforms out there. And I'm just curious your rationale for, instead of just being that specialty piece for subtitling and transcription, why, and just being the best in breed at that, why not, why build it out as opposed to partnering with the other people you understand what I'm saying? It's like, for example, at memoQ, we partner with we don't do the whole end to end. We partner with the business management system providers and so on. So, what's your rationale for that?
So like, what we want to build is like this platform for like the audiovisual language services, like that have this project management and that takes into account the entire workflow. Mm-hmm. Now we know that our customers might be depending on other platforms, other products. And our idea is not just to like build a block where we don't communicate to anyone and we just do the things on our way, but that's part of like, of building this workflow platform. How do you integrate with all your content management system, and how can it be communication back and forth? Or can you connect your TMSs and being able to transfer the multilingual glossary back and forth from Happy Scribe to like whatever the software you're using. But like what we really want is not just building this AI fancy tool that is doing transcription and subtitles, but we want to become the professional service, the professional platform for audiovisual localization service. I think that if you look at the tech industry and kind of like all the platforms that have been built around this, because they're popping like every day on the market, I think if there is something that is missing very often, and I think that's something we cracked in the recent years, we were very bad at in the early days, is understanding that we're not just on the technology industry, but we're also on the language industry, and that being able to set yourself as like an industry leader and like position the company as like a key player in that industry, in both industry, is really important. But ultimately, what we serve is media company, we serve corporates, we serve language service providers, traditional language service providers, and we need to provide the highest level of quality. So it's very important for us to own these services as well internally, like not relying on external transcription software, not relying on external like agencies to do the human part.
Sure.
Because in the end, our customers are coming to us because they trust us. When we work with a media company and they are, giving us like this last comic feature that they need to publish, they cannot fail it. There is no room for mistake.
Yeah.
And so like the only way you can really do this is if you own the process completely and you're sure that you have safeguards at different part of the process, because the trust that you build is probably, and I think in the language industry especially, is probably one of the most important component of the brand that you're building. And if you fucked up at some point in this process, then you're going to lose a customer, because the person on the other side that requested your service is the one that will like receive all the bad feedback for the service that is selected.
I 100% agree with you. And people talk about, oh, it's about features and it's about benefits and it's about price and it's about quality. And there's the three-legged stool and all these different models. And I say in parallel with all of that, trust is like the game breaker or maker, because you could be the cheapest solution on the market, but if I don't trust you, I'm not going to buy it. You could be free and say, hey, this is free. I'd be like, no, I don't want it, man, because I don't trust you. Right. So, and then if you mess up somebody's job, you know, you win the deal and then you mess it up, you're never getting back in there, man. That's
so. But that's been a huge shift for Happy Scribe in terms of like what we're building, because as I was saying, like in the first 5 years, it was just like a transcription tool. It was trying to do like, you know, the dirty job for everyone and anyone. And we really understood that like basically like this AI transcription work that you can do, either you do it for the professionals, either you become a feature. And that's something that really like was kind of a shock for us. So we're like, okay, actually we have quite a few people using the platform that if what we're providing them was part of another software, they would just use the other software because that's what they're using on a daily basis.
Fair enough.
And so that's really when Happy Scribe really switched to becoming like kind of a language service provider in some way, like very product focused, but really being here on providing the highest quality of services for professionals, both with AI and with human in the loops.
Let me ask you this. I want to come back to the business model in a second. But right now, I think you mentioned Amazon Prime and maybe Netflix, or another streaming company, or, you know, as either an existing customer or potential customer. That's in the media space. I think that you also do a fair amount of work in e-learning. And what other kind of areas are you getting traction?
Yeah, so it's very broad, because like we have this like what you call in the tech industry product-led growth approach. So we have this very big acquisition channel on search engine optimization. So we have around like maybe 20-30,000 landing pages out there that like brings around 1 million people on the website every month, that we are like translating into maybe 250,000 signups on a monthly basis. Then out of this, we focus on like what are like the high potential one. And when you look at the high potential one, or like the one we actually want to do business with, because we have a lot of people using our service, but we don't actively want to work with all of them. And we want to focus on a part.
Let me ask you, like, I mean, obviously you're going to get a lot of just consumers, students who want a transcription of their research, right? I'm assuming that you're okay with them as long as it's fully automated. You just don't want
exactly.
Okay. And then with the enterprise level, okay, I want to get on the phone call, have a discovery call, and then get a project management team, in place and something like that.
Not even. So like the way even our enterprise like get in touch with us is that they follow the consumer model. Let's say you're like this big corporate, you sign up because you want subtitle for your internal communication, and you use Happy Scribe once, and then you refer it to a colleague, and you refer it to another person. And suddenly you have 5, 6, 7 people using Happy Scribe to get this service. And that is when, like, by looking at the usage, our sales team will come in and say like, oh, hey, like we see that you have like 7 people using the platform. You're spending this amount. Would it be interesting to get into like an annual or like a contract with you? Awesome. And that's a bit our approach to the problem. In terms of like who are our customers today, we have 3 groups really that we target. The first one is always on the media use case. The first one is the corporate. So in corporate, you would have press agencies, banks, investment funds, supermarkets. So like that's like just very big companies that need to need services for their internal, external communication and internal e-learning training teams. Then we have the all like language service provider industry, so like the language industry, where like we actually like help a lot of like traditional player with the audiovisual localization needs that they, because they don't necessarily have the expertise internally, or and they get a request there and there, and so like we act as like maybe they kind of resell our service, or they onboard directly all their resources on Happy Scribe and use our AI platform to make the initial work. And finally, we have the media part. And the media part is the one where we focus all the energy, because we know that the energy we put into that industry then also impacts the two others that we're focusing on. And in the media industry, it's very broad. So like it goes from e-learning, all the way down to audiovisual entertainment. But what's important for us is, does this company, is the media part of the core business model, or has an impact on the core business model of this company? And basically that's when we consider them in that sphere. So like in this, you would have e-learning companies, but we also have like more like HR software, but that have like a huge media team where like they produce a huge amount of video. You have the influencers world. You have entertainment. It's kind of broad.
Awesome, man. So you're talking about all those enterprise type customers, but earlier you mentioned that you do work with LSPs. Can you give a rough breakdown of what percentage is enterprise versus what percentage is working with LSPs?
So like, I'd say right now it's like 60% media, 20%, 30% corporate, and the rest in LSP.
Okay, so it's a relatively small market. I mean,
it's still very meaningful for us, and I'll explain you why. So like first, I'm super happy because like we actually like 2 days ago we got selected to become the subtitling partner for Gala.
I saw that. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you, in 2024. So that's pretty exciting.
And you don't have to travel very far for the Gala event. It's in Valencia, I think, in May or April, something.
Yeah, 2 hours train.
Nice.
So like that's like, and but what's important for us in the language service provider with language service provider is like first, we want to serve people that have a need of audiovisual localization services. The truth is that today, and that's the reason I believe a lot in this industry as an ICP or like key type of customer for us, is that if you're like a traditional like company that get like 1 video subtitle, 2 video subtitled, your instinct of like who are you going to contact to get this subtitle done is your traditional language partner,
right?
Your traditional LSP. And so like by partnering with LSP, we get access, or like we know that we can start serving like not 1, but like, I don't know, 50 accounts for a small agency. And so like that's still very interesting for us. So like we can serve quite a few customers through an agency, basically.
Okay. And so how do you deal with this? Because there's a lot of companies that, I won't say a lot. There's some big examples of companies before that produced software, but also sold services. And a lot of their customers, the LSPs and the MLBs or SLBs, would consider them potentially a competition. If we're talking about SDL, for example, right? But right now there's several different technology providers. I'm not going to name too many of them, but got to be careful, tread lightly. But for example, Boostlingo sells services directly, but they also white label their services for LSPs. You have a company in Australia called AccuDocs. AccuDocs provides, if you want to get your your passport translated, most LSPs don't want to deal with that, but if they can white label the solution, they can automate it and create an extra revenue stream, right? So there is this, but in your case, you could potentially be competing with the LSPs. How do you manage that conversation?
That's interesting. That's a really interesting topic. So like white labeling, definitely when we did our research on LSP was something that was coming up a lot. We took the decision to not work on it right now because in terms of prioritization, it's not where we can have the biggest impact. But at the same time, right now we're being used a bit on the background. Mm-hmm. So like we could be a potential competitor, but I don't think that the channel of acquisitions are the same.
Okay.
So I don't believe that we compete at the same level. When people come to us, they have they have an individual need. Maybe we can sign them as a client, but we don't sell to the language team in a corporation that much. And the LSP is kind of and as well, and I think that's the most important point is that we're kind of like the AI language partner for this LSP. Like we're able to provide a platform that makes their work much, much faster in terms of how to provide audiovisual language services. And that's kind of the key reasons why they come to us today. Having 30, 40 PMs on the platform that can, if they receive an audiovisual services, can order it, get it back to the clients. We can make it much easier. And it's not something that they would definitely show to their, the way the white label would be great for us is that they would probably share the platform with their end clients.
Yeah. No, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you this though, because a lot of times at the enterprise level, these projects will come in and they'll be, across several different languages. I'm assuming, that's what I've seen in the past. How do you decide which languages you support? Or do you support, actually, let me back up. Which languages do you support? I don't want you to go through the whole list. Maybe you can just give me a rough number of languages you support.
We support we support 35 languages. And in terms of translation vertical, I think it's around 50, 60 vertical. And so this is both for AI and human. So most of the service, maybe there is a bit more in the AI than the human, but we try to match them most of the time.
And how do you decide which languages you're going to support? Is it based upon what the market is demanding, or are you just looking at what the most popular language pairs are, or what?
So if it's always a bit tricky because at the beginning we were just providing the languages that we were really, really, really sure about.
Yeah.
We knew there was a strong demand for us on this platform. And then we saw that became a blocker because we have an acquisition that is very global. Mm-hmm. And we get requests from customers that are also global companies. So we decided to switch and to basically allow most of the languages. And then that's when we've hired language, especially language team that is actually dealing on a more project basis language that are less frequent. So we have different class of verticals internally. We have the verticals where most of the process is fully automated. So we have all our freelancers on the platform. They are onboarded on our product. They have alerts, even the pay is automated. Everything is happening on site. Then we have more agencies even, or freelancers that we work more on an ad hoc basis for verticals that are very niche,
right? And
that we don't receive that much demand in, and that there it's a more project management work that we have to do. And yeah.
Awesome. The AI playing field is changing so rapidly. Mm. What are you seeing, and what is your prediction for, in terms of the ability, the power, the new applications of AI in the context of the services you provide? What are you going to predict over the next 6 to 12 months?
6 to 12 months. So at least I can tell you what we'll be working on. So I don't think in terms of audiovisual localization services, I think AI is still far behind. what the needs are. Like I was talking to like some people from the BBC like a while ago. They don't even use AI in any of the processes. Like you're touching to something where the brand is so important that the quality you cannot. There is the price is completely secondary.
Yeah.
But the quality needs to be at the top, whatever is happening. And even when you go for translation, like when you're talking about more adaptation, for a comic feature or a drama, it's very hard to rely on even large language model at all today. Where what I see in the next 12 months in terms of AI is more like how do we use more AI to assist the human work on how to do this type of jobs. So like if you look at a movie, for example, where you have like what you call like forced narratives. So it's like text inside the video that you need to extract and translate. This is a job that AI can assist the human with. It's like, can we extract the text? Can we like say, okay, does this text adds a value to the full story by looking at the context of like all the entire subtitle that we have? If yes, let's add it on the subtitle. If no, let's leave it behind. And I think that AI can play a really big role into like improving all of this, like small processes. Can we detect text on screen? We move the subtitle up, the shot changes, etc., etc. And it's mixing, like, I see like a lot of mixing computer vision with large language model to like speech to text to like really have something that can bring value. I was like, I'm very right now, like one of the things I look a lot at these days is SDH subtitles subtitles for the deaf and hard of hearing, because it's very complex and it's very standardized in every country. And so what I look at is like, how can we create an engine that can create SDH subtitles we can create a model that create SDH subtitles for different countries. So like, how can you need to change the colors based if the person are on screen or off screen. You need to like, give the name only if this person appeared previously in the story, etc., etc. And I think there is like, just like a huge like playground here for like a lot of like AI work to be done to like speed up and probably like cut quite a lot the cost of the industry.
You said a couple of really interesting things there. I'm going to start with the last point first. On a personal note, one of the most initially confusing meetings that I have been in the last year was I was on a conference call with a hard of hearing, deaf hard of hearing person. They had their interpreter who I could see, but the other person was off camera. And the person who was doing the interpretation, so I was speaking and then he was doing the signs and then he was speaking back to me. At one point I thought I was talking to him. I thought he was the guy. I was like, and he goes, no, I'm that guy. And, it's hard for my brain to kind of, track that. But it gave me a whole nother level of respect for that space. But to back up and talk about the different applications of AI. So, for example, and I totally agree with you. At memoQ, we have memoQ AGT, which is really focused on kind of the language piece. So, looking at the linguistic assets that we have for our customer, and then pulling out the key points, key segments, whatever that is, and pulling that in, and then creating the appropriate translation. Okay, based upon the AI using those linguistic assets, and there's the whole prompt that pulls out the appropriate ones. But that's kind of our approach. I've seen other technology providers who are doing exactly what you are talking about, where they're using AI to make the project managers much more efficient in their jobs, which is not even on the linguistic piece. It's like kind of anticipating what they're going to need and getting the right tools, the right files, etc., the right resources in front of them. It's fascinating, and I think I probably put the timeline too short, 6 to 12 months. It would be interesting to come back in 24 months. And I bet you all of the technology providers are going to be, I would say 20% of their platforms will be changed.
Yeah. I am 100%. Like, I think like if I look at like everything that can be done right now, like it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I want to wrap this up with a couple other questions. First off, where do you go to stay abreast of, what's coming down the road, both industry wise and then technology wise? Okay. So industry wise would be the market and the competition. And then technology is, the underlying engine of your platform.
Yeah. I think for me, like curiosity, maybe like that's like to summarize. I don't think I have like one place where like I get all my information but like there is not a single week where I don't speak to a customer. There is not a single week where I don't speak to like someone that is an expert in the industry. There's not a single week where I don't speak with like my AI team and like, how can we do this? And like, I have ideas and I ping them back with them. And so for me, it's like, I get source of information from a lot of different places, but I like to ping them back with other people and see how people are responding. And that's what I found super interesting when you can and that's why I love this space of between in technology and in the language industry.
Sure.
Is this power that we have in this industry of like being able to like ping pong ideas of like, we have the technological expertise, you have the language expertise. Let's make magic happen together. And that's something that I found extremely powerful.
Awesome. Do you have any favorite book recommendations?
Favorite book recommendation?
You didn't read books anymore? Does anybody read anymore?
No, I have one book.
Okay.
Now that we've talked about this, so like I think it's like for any team. So it's called the 5 Dysfunction of a Team.
Okay.
I don't have the name Lancian. I don't have the name exactly of the writer in the top of my head, but it's a bit like all the different things that the team is going to go through and that will make them fail or succeed. And the entire story is written as a novel.
Awesome.
And it's very, it's like I made my entire team read it like a few years ago on like the importance of being vulnerable about what you're great about, what you're good at, and what you're bad at. And there's like, in the end, we need to work as a team, and the strongest strength of a team is its vulnerability, is accepting that someone else is better than me at doing this, and that I'm better at this person to do this. And this is easy on paper. In practice, it's much harder, and training people to have this, on this muscle, I find it to be very powerful. And this book is really great for this.
I will check it out. I think that's really smart, because if you put the book out there in advance, it's like you create an awareness of the emotions and the thoughts that people are going to experience down the road. And they're like, this is what we read about. Yeah. So that's awesome. I like that. Last thing. Okay. You mentioned you started this or initiated it when you were 23 years old. Let's go back 7 years, and you're talking to your 23-year-old self. What advice would you give that 23-year-old André?
So this is really like random feedback, but I really mean it. I would tell him like, focus. Like,
focus. Okay.
No, but like, because I think, I think it's something that is true in the language industry in general, is that you can serve a lot of different clients. Mm-hmm. You can serve a lot of different industry, a lot of different use cases. And I find it as being something that is fascinating about this industry, but at the same time, that is a real risk when you are trying to build a business, because it keeps you away from building a top 1% solution for one specific segment. And you end up building something that is great for everyone, but not top for anyone.
Right.
And that's something I would have told to myself. So like, I think like since the 3 years, we made huge progress and like we understood this and we refocused completely the business. But at the beginning, that's probably like the mistake I'll try to not do again.
No, I think that's a great observation, amazing advice. It's so easy to get pulled in different directions and, there's an opportunity over here. Oh, let's go after this and let's go after that. And at the end of the day, if you're a jack of all trades, master of none, it's tough. In fact, for the company that I co-founded in running memoQ RFP, one of our things is, look, we don't have to do everything for everybody. We just have to do one or two things 10 times better than somebody else, than everybody else. And so that's kind of our focus. So we're aligned there. That's good.
Cool.
Hey, André, I really appreciate it. It was great meeting you in Local, and I love your service. In fact, I'm going to use it with this episode. I'm going to create a transcript. And so awesome. Thank you so much for taking some time and joining us on memoQ Talks.
Thank you, Mark. A pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining memoQ Talks, where we talked with industry leaders about their experiences and lessons learned to gain new insights about what works best across all areas of localization. Join us next time on memoQ Talks.